Welcome to the Just Futures Family, Freedom, and Security Roundtable for Fall 2023 with Joyce McMillan, Samaria Rice, Amanda Wallace, and Don Wooten. My name is Joy James. I'm now inviting my colleague, Christine DeLucia, to read the Land and Labor Acknowledgement.
We respectfully acknowledge that Williams College stands on the ancestral homelands of the Stockbridge-Munsee Mohicans, who are the indigenous peoples of the region now called Williamstown. Following tremendous hardship after being forced from their valued homelands, they continued as a sovereign tribal nation in Wisconsin, which is where they reside today. We pay honor and respect to their ancestors past and present as we commit to building a more inclusive and equitable space for all. We recognize that the institutions we occupy, where we are privileged to learn and teach, have developed in places where Indigenous and African people have been enslaved and rendered unfree in other ways. Given the labor extraction that is foundational to such colleges and universities, we ask for and seek ways of making restitution that will constitute some forms of freedom.
Thank you, Christine. So now could all of our 4 contributors please come on camera so that I can read your bios. Thank you. I'm going to read 4 bios or biographies of very important contributors to ethics and also to this democracy. And I'll begin with Joyce McMillan. Joyce McMillan is a thought leader, advocate, activist, community organizer, and educator. Her mission is to remove systemic barriers in communities of color by bringing awareness to the racial disparities in systems where people of color are disproportionately affected. Joyce believes before change occurs, the conversation about systemic oppression that creates poverty and feeds people of color into systems must happen on all levels consistently. She completed a restorative certificate program at the New School in New York City and says that change will not happen independently of healing. Her ultimate goal is to abolish systems of harm while creating concrete community resources. As a mother, political advocate, and the founder and CEO of Samaria Rice Foundation, our second contributor tonight, Ms. Samaria Rice proudly serves as an advocate for juvenile rights in Cleveland, Ohio. Since the murder of her 12-year-old son, Tamir, by Cleveland police in 2014, Ms. Rice has committed her life to being on the front lines for change. Samaria's passion for civil rights reaches across lines of difference, uniting us all to work towards change. Following Tamir's death, Samaria has used her voice in the service of her son's legacy. Samaria encourages us to take back our communities by standing up for justice, her voice resonating with many mothers and children in our community. She has become a motivating force for families and communities across the nation. Our third contributor, Amanda Wallace, received her Bachelor's of Social Work degree from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Within a 10-year career as a child abuse investigator, Amanda worked throughout several counties in North Carolina. While working on the front lines, protecting children from abuse and neglect, Amanda simultaneously protected families from the oppressive child protection system. Watching the rights of families decrease and the power of CPS increase, Amanda realized that she had become the silent enforcer for an oppressive system. It was then that Amanda understood the system and the perceived power given to CPS by society. In May of 2021, Amanda founded Operation Stop CPS, an organization on the front lines in the fight to abolish the family regulation system. Our final contributor, Don Wooten, LPN, worked as a nurse at the Irwin County Detention Center, ICDC, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, Immigration Detention Center in Ocilla, Georgia. As COVID-19 began to spread like wildfire in early 2020, particularly in congregate settings like immigration detention facilities, Ms. Wooten became gravely concerned about failures at ICDC to comply with CDC guidelines and protect immigrants and workers alike from the coronavirus and other misconduct, including shredding detainees' requests for medical care. In addition, numerous immigrant women detainees began to ask her about gynecological procedures they underwent that made them sterile without understanding why or what they experienced. Ms. Wooten began raising concerns internally to her supervisors about the harmful conditions and medical mistreatment at ICDC, only to find herself demoted to an on-call position with no subsequent calls for work. Unable to stay silent, knowing about the risks of ongoing harm to the immigrants detained at ICDC, she secured pro bono legal counsel to assist her in filing whistleblower complaints with the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, Office of Inspector General on September 14, 2020, and with Congress on September 17, 2020. I'm Joy James, professor at Williams College, and I welcome our exceptional guests this evening. And I'll ask then if the other three will come off, and we'll begin with Ms. Joyce McMillan.
Shall I begin?
Please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Joy James, for convening this conversation tonight. I'd like to start with speaking about, well, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm an impacted parent. And so I've had other people who were former workers within the system transform their work the same way Amanda has. So I want to shout Amanda out for having the inside information and sharing it with parents like myself that seek to make change. And I would say that the system has not helped any of the families that I've worked with in the time that I've been advocating, which has been about 7 to 8 years. The system is designed to make us fail. It is a place of surveillance and control. They lie to us and tell us that they're a benevolent system that cares about children. But I had a conversation with someone from the state of New York just recently, and I said, well, why do you only care about children when they're at home with their parents and you don't utilize your money to support that family and make sure they have the things they need? When they come into the system, they don't even graduate. You can't even keep them in school, in the same school for an entire school year. They're changing homes using garbage bags while the CEOs of foster care agencies are making upward $500,000. This system that has been created after they claim to have abolished slavery is the biggest farce that America has ever sold us. They've told a lot of lies, but this by far is the biggest, because all of these systems are designed to capture Black and brown bodies and white bodies that are poor, along with poor Black people, and the white people are collateral consequence. But they're the first ones to benefit when change happens from the work that people like myself and Amanda and others are doing on the ground. What I seek is to be respected as a human being in America, which has not happened because their system is designed not to see us in any human form at all. And that is why almost anything we do becomes unsafe for us. Driving while Black, playing while Black, shopping while Black, walking while Black, bird watching while Black, attending college while Black. I'm going to stop there with that stuff because that's what we're going to discuss tonight during this conversation. I would like to tell you what family means to me. What family means to me is people I love, care about, trust, support. I don't think family is defined by blood alone. I think we can often choose our family members because I have some better relationships with people who are not blood related. So I think family is really a determining factor for each individual to decide what family is to them and how they interact with their families. What I seek is to have freedom, which is liberty, free from control, civil liberty, absence of false narratives that endanger us, absence of government control via systems that claim to help us but never help, removal of systemic injustices that hamper our peace, the ability to do normal activities without fear, simple things like exercising our driving privilege without being afraid we're going to die if we get stopped by the police. I think we all seek, or I know I do, the security of what it would mean to be free. Being free would mean being safe from the harms created outside of decisions that we don't have control over as individuals. And I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Joyce. Next, we would have Amanda Wallace.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, tonight I want to talk about, of course, this topic of family, freedom, and security from the inside out. Like J. Max said, I come from this system from the inside as being a child protective service investigator. And while working inside of this system, I think that I had a different definition of what these words meant. Right? The definition of family is defined by the system, right? What is appropriate? What is inappropriate for a family? What does a family look like? All of these definitions were taught to me by the very system that we seek to abolish. And then in regards to freedom, I believe I thought that families could still be free inside of a system, right? And while I was still working inside of the system. And then that this family regulation system or any other system that was designed was there to ensure the security of people and children or keep people safe. But that understanding of now being on the outside of this system, we now understand that family is not what this system defines it, but is what we define it as. We now understand that freedom is we're not free. And something that we still have to fight for, and we have to ensure that our security is what it needs to be to ensure that our families are free. But what we also have to understand is that the very existence of this system is a threat to our families, to our freedom, and our security. So we have to understand the root. And a lot of times we get caught up in the conversation of, well, what will happen if we abolish the system? And when we get to reparations and we talk about that and we reroute these funds to the community, we can deal with all of these problems. But what we first have to understand and have a deeper understanding of is that this system does not serve us. There is no system that rips children out of their safe and loving homes and puts them in a foster care system where they are raped, murdered, and beaten and think that is what we need. And so again, I just want to show people the reality of this system. This is Zephaniah and Miss Sellers, a family in Kentucky. Miss Sellers gave birth to Zephaniah at 2 days old. 2 days old. She had done nothing, but she was accused of being impolite while Black. And this is what happened to this mother.
The baby does not have any drugs in his system? Does he? Does he? Does he? Hold on. One time. You're gonna hurt my baby. You let go. You let go. Don't do that. You let go. Don't do that to me. I got her on her. Get it back next. My baby. Off me. I already cut the backpack if you don't let go of your arm. No, please. Let go of your arm, I'll cut it. But please, like,
Hold on. You got it back.
please, like, hold me. Yeah.
I got it, Cooper.
Oh, my God. Please, like, hold me.
I can't see the cup. Go ahead and get the other cup, and then we can.
So we can't talk about family, or we can't talk about this system without getting to the root, right? The root is that this system was created to kidnap Black and brown children. And this is doing so well that there are states that can't even balance their budget without kidnapping children, all children, right? And so again, to understand the root, a system is designed for certain formal and informal structures, functions and capacities that have been assembled to prevent and respond to something. Respond to something, whatever it is that the system wants to respond to, right? So we got the criminal justice system, they prevent and respond to crime, so they say. Family regulation and policing system, they say they're preventing and responding abuse of neglect in children. But in reality, if we understand the root, we know that all of these systems come from colonialism, capitalism, and they were only uprooted to be able to stop people from becoming free. And if we don't get that, if we don't understand that, we will look at this modern day family regulation system and not see the auction block, not see the sale of Black and brown children. We won't see that. And we have to see it. If we don't see it, we can't abolish it. And if we don't see the reality of this system, we'll see Tyree Nichols as another Black body murdered in the street by the slave catchers, and not see the public lynching of our people each and every day in these United States of America. And again, when we talk about freedom, we got to understand that we are not free. Just because our houses might look nicer, our paychecks might have gotten bigger, they let us walk around what we believe is freely. We are not free until we have enough power, political, economic power, to be able to demand everything that we want and we deserve. We are not free, and we have to accept that and understand that. But I really want to take a minute to talk about security, because we think about to what end. We see how bad it is. We see the threat to our families. Again, I really want people to resonate with Miss Sellers, this mother that took 590 days to get her baby home after being snatched at 2 days old. And it's like, well, what do we do with that? How do we get free? We get organized. We get people power. And so I'm a part of the African National Women's Organization, and there are other organizations, African-led organizations that people can get a part of to understand the deeper political theory and understanding of what is happening, so that we can see each system as the United States government. It's not a fairy tale, it's the United States government. That is who we are trying to abolish, right? And so in order to do that, we have to, again, get organized. So the African People's Socialist Party, the Independent Uhuru Democratic Movement, all of these movements of people that are fighting for freedom and the security of our people, because security comes from the people. And then, of course, we got to talk about reparations, because how do we do this? We do it through reparations and resources back to our community. A lot of times, again, we'll get the question, well, what are you going to replace it with? How are you going to do this? And how are you going to do that? Well, we got to have the resources to be able to start to develop those plans, right? We have to have that. They have it because they are able to print their money, keep the money, and continue to push up inflation and everything else to keep us oppressed. But we can demand, right? We can demand what is rightfully ours, right? Our labor that we have gotten, that they have gotten off the backs of our people. It's time for us to be able to bring the question of reparations to every conversation. The African People's Socialist Party has already made reparations a household name and question of when are we getting ours. And again, I push that for us to be able to understand that security is tied to reparations. And also, again, I want to be able to invite everybody to the Black Mothers March on the White House, because it is a mobilization to say to this United States government that enough is enough. Right? Enough is enough. Family is what we define it as. Freedom is what we are going to fight for. And security is in our hands. It's in each and every one of us. And so you can go to the blackmothersmarch.com and register. And we hope to see each and every one of you in Washington, D.C. as we take this question right to the doorsteps of the White House and tell them that our babies are our babies and that they're going to stop kidnapping them. And get involved. You know, you can scan the QR code right here on your screen to be able to get in contact with us. Follow us on social media at Operation Stop CPS, so we can continue to do this work. Thank you, Joy James. Thank you, Williams College, for this invitation. I can't wait to, really talk in this roundtable talk with the other, thought leaders here to be able to really talk about this question. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Next, we have Don Wooten. Don, I think you might be muted.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Listening to Joyce and Amanda that went before me, I agree 100% when they talk about family and the definition of family. I'm coming from a medical position to where I was a nurse inside of a ICE detention immigrant facility for about 4 to 5 years, working on the inside. Family is defined as what we make it as. It's defined as how we create it. Inside the facility, they have families with guards, and then they have families with the detainees or the ICE immigrants that were inside of the facility. And we were never taught to break code, to break rank. We were never supposed to develop families with the ICE immigrant women or men that were inside of the facility. I live down south where it is still developing and still undergoing white supremacy suppression. My counterpart or my supervisor was a Caucasian male that told me that when I brought my complaints and concerns to him as my supervisor, he told me because I thought I was Black enough and thought that I was woman enough and female enough to challenge his authority, that my position now will be made PRN. So I have not had employment in that place for 2 years. And if these women had not developed family on the inside, they develop a pod to where they trust each other with their secrets and they trust each other with their situations and their circumstances for years on end. And it happened to come across my ears one day, and I became part of the family. Sick call nurse. I developed a relationship with different nationalities on the inside. And upon the hearing of the things that were going on the inside of the facility, as a family member that had a voice, as a family member that they trusted to talk about those things that was taking place with them on the inside of the facility, I was cast out of a family that I was supposed to be structured into, which was supposed to be a family of officers and nurses. We were not to intermingle. So family is what we make it. Yes, we do need to hear each other's voices. Yes, we do need to take the time out to hear each other. Also in the confines of this place, I'm going to define freedom inside of a place to where they were supposed to possess a right for their situations and their circumstances and their concerns to go unhindered. But who hears you already inside of a place that's confined? Who's your voice on the inside of a place that you're already locked up and that you're policed and that you're secured on the inside of a place? There's not enough voices in the earth to make the noise that it needs to be made against the voices that are making the noise. So I am so loving and I'm so hearing and enjoying the movements that are being made in areas and places. And Amanda was correct. I was the only one punished on the inside of this facility because I came outside of the box and I became the scrutiny outside of the box. So freedom should have been a way and a voice for them to express that freedom and those liberties. Whenever they came against those officers on the inside, they were either water was shut off or food was denied them, or it was still a form of control that was going on the inside of this place that I'm seeing that we're supposed to be free here in these United States of America, the home of the brave and the land of the free. And a lot of the different migrant, immigrant people that were on the inside, it was not because they had committed these mass murders. Some of them were women that were had borrowed, had a credit to a local store and got insulin syringes, and the local store owner got upset, turned them over, or they were taking food out of places to feed their children. So it was not as atrocitic as they were treated on the inside of this place. And then we talk about security inside of a place that you're supposed to be secured, supposed to be taken care of, and you're supposed to be watched, and you're supposed to be governed over with rights, even though they were on the inside of this facility. So it's hard watching, and it was hard standing by as a nurse, not to have that voice to stand up and say that these things are coming across my desk. I'm doing this research and I'm looking up these things that I'm bringing to you that I know you had to have known that was transpiring on the inside of this place, but they're secure, and you're reassuring them that they're safe. You're reassuring these women that they're safe, but their uteruses are being taken without permission. You're reassuring these women that they're safe, but their tubes are being taken without consent. You're reassuring these men that they are being taken care of, but because they stand up for their rights on the inside and they're not the same color as you, then you're depriving them of a shower, you're depriving them of food, or you're depriving these women, if they don't go out to see the gynecologist at the time, that they don't get to eat, or they don't get treated accordingly, or they don't get to talk to their family, or they don't get to talk to their loved ones. And we're speaking in a sense of security inside of a place being secure. I do not change my mind at any point for speaking out for injustice. I will not change my mind for speaking out, but listening across the panel and listening across the things that I've heard in the place that I've been in, racism and slavery has not stopped. It's just come to a place to where people have come to another level of covering and sheltering and threatening. There was a lot of threatening going on the inside. My life was threatened if I continued to speak out. We had to be security, up under security for several months. Somebody threatened my life and my children. So it's still going back to that form of control. So I'm like Amanda, I'm interested to hear where we're going with this conversation. And I'm excited to be a part of a move in the capacity that I'm in with this move.
Thank you, Dawn. Thanks. Samaria?
Hello, can you hear me? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Samaria Rice. I am the mother of Tamir Rice. I am the founder and CEO of the Tamir Rice Foundation, located in Cleveland, Ohio, where we offer after-school free programming. And that is my way of giving back to the community by offering tutoring and mentoring, expression arts, music, Pan-African history, classic civic classes, and much more, including performing arts studio and things like that. When I think about being free in this country, there's no freedom for us. People should understand that. I agree wholly with Amanda and Joyce and Don that we have to have a conversation and develop some type of codes of conduct with the people, with the people foremost, and teach them with Black liberation should look like and should be like, right? How to love on one another, because we are so broken from being in this country. We don't trust one another. So we have to build up that love and that trust towards one another, because we're the only race that does not stick together. So we have to wake up and understand how it's important for us to obtain our reparations and get our security in place, because it's not designed for us. As Amanda said, this is not designed for us. It has never been designed for us. It never been designed for us. And so, we have to get with like-minded people like ourselves and have these conversations and filter through the people that want to be there and don't want to be there, right? Because there's some people that want to be there, some people that don't want to be there. And it's very crucial that everybody be there and understand that we are at war, and we've been at war for over 400 something years now. We've been at war. Me going to the State of the Union address last night with the Tyree Nichols family and the George Floyd family. I was invited by my councilwoman, Chantel Brown. And let me just tell you, it was so sickening and pathetic and pitiful to see all of those politicians and Homeland Security and police officers in the Capitol. It was just sickening to see a lot of that stuff to me because of what I have endured in this country, right? It looked like a bunch of puppets and they are cheering on master. Like I was not interested to see any of that, although the experience was much needed, right? Because I needed to see stuff like that. And what we was able to do is just have a conversation. Say, I'm tired of having conversations. It's something that needs to be done. Then they talk about getting the Senate out of there and some of the House of Representatives and things like that. Like, these people been in office for years and they're not going to change. They're not changing. It's not designed for them to change. It is designed this way to keep us oppressed. They are white supremacy, and that's just what it is. This country is built on white supremacy, off of the blood of Black and brown people of color in this country. It is time that we unite. It is time that we wake up and come together. But the universe set up the chosen ones to be leaders. And that's what's going on right here. I was chose for this position, you know what I'm saying? And my son was a sacrifice for this position. And so with my experience with implementing severe oversight and just being a part of a political arena because of my child, it's quite sickening. And I had to get woken up in a most horrific way, right? The most horrific way is to lose a child, and I have no understanding with that. I have no indictment with that. And I realized, like, I was living in the bubble. I could say that because when you're not raised in the culture of Black liberation, or you're not raised that way, and, sometimes our parents kind of forget like where we come from. They try to give us a better life and things that they had. So when you're not raised, you don't know. So I really thought that I was free in America, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not. Look at the color of my skin, look at the color of your skin. So it is a difference, the way they treat us. The Constitution do not work for anybody. That should show people like it is time to unite and come together. And again, we have to have a code of conduct in order to, make this work for everybody, right? Because a lot of people are, they want to learn, they're going to be learning, and it's a learning process for everybody. But we need the people, we need a people's government, because this government does not serve us. We need a people's government that serves the people. And when it comes to security, we have to have those conversations and figure out what that looks like, on top of getting reparations, getting land that's owed to us, that is much needed for us, because it's a lot of people that's was born in this country, people of color, they don't want to go nowhere else. I have had those conversations where people said, I'm not going nowhere, I'm staying here. They should leave. So at this point, we are entitled to security, and it looks like reparations, it looks like resources, it looks like land. We have to teach our people how to love on one another, how to build up that trust between one another, and how to continue to support one another. I mean, we are the only race that do not stick together, and it's time. It is time that we come together. When you talk about recognizing who you are in this country, we are Black kings and queens in this country. You understand that? And the white supremacy is designed to be that way. And my thing is, I believe God had created all of this, because I'm very spiritual as well. So I believe he had to put bad people down here for us to deal with certain type of things, and go through different obstacles and things like that. And also white supremacy, is very much real, and it's and it's part of the history of this country, right? So we have to come together, you know, whether it's voting, getting these people out of office, maybe to put the right people in, maybe, I don't know, because what I seen last night was like a dog and pony show. I'm gonna be honest with you. The State of the Union address was very educational. I was able to see a lot of things. I was able to connect with a lot of families. But again, they keep adding to this group. Don't nobody want, like, they keep adding to this group with no accountability. And it's just like it's not normal for any person in this country, especially people of color, to wake up to see another Black or brown person murdered by the hands of law enforcement. That is not normal. That is sickening. On top of trying to build our community, for we don't continue to have community violence, right? And to teach our brothers and sisters how to love on one another, how to care for one another, and things like that. So through my journey and the death of my son, I tell everybody my DNA changed up. I'm not who I used to be. So I'm under a couple different teachers like Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey and Khalid Muhammad, and these are the people that help me stay focused on who I am as a Black woman in this country, and that has to fight continuously to get whatever I may need from the white people, the oppressor, and sometimes it can also be our own, right? So again, we have to get a code of conduct, because everybody not going to be able to ride on this ride with us, right? We have to make sure that we have like-minded peoples like ourselves. Like I said before, again, Harriet Tubman, she could have freed more if they knew that they was free. And then some of them was trying to go back. What did she do? She took them up out of here. We can't afford no mess ups. It's already messed up. We already behind. You understand? This is so crucial, man. Like, this is serious when it comes to this white supremacy. I'm not gonna sugarcoat nothing for them. I don't have time. I have a 12-year-old son that for no indictment. Like, they can't say nothing to me. And I have got plenty of death threats. And I have got plenty of people telling me to be quiet and calling me out my names and stuff like that, but I don't have to be quiet. Y'all made it possible for me to have this platform, so I'm gonna do what I need to do and wake up the masses of the people, if that's what it takes. Keep waking them up, keep being there, supporting, and being diligent to this movement and this work that I'm in. It is very crucial that y'all listen to these women on this line, because they have the facts. When you talk about the hospital and being quiet, they are stealing our babies' organs, they're stealing our body parts and stuff like that. And people need to understand, like, they're not reproducing, y'all. It's more of us than them. Trust and believe that. Do not get it twisted. So again, with the knowledge that I have, we could go on and on and on, and we could talk. But I just want to put some key points out key things out there for you all to awaken your minds and things up. Like this country is crumbling, and if we don't get us together as a whole, us people of color as a whole, you know, we're gonna have a lot of casualties, you know what I'm saying? And that's something that I do not want to see, you know what I'm saying? But unfortunately, there will be. But if we can continue to wake up the masses and come together as one and form a people's government for us, to serve us, not the elites of the world, you know what I'm saying? Because they got all this money out here. Why we don't have no people's government? They gonna follow a white supremacy government? And I don't think so. So I mean, it's boggling to me that they can actually serve a different master than the master that brought them here or whatever. But and understand that it's designed this way. It's designed for our children, for them to be entertainers and do all of that, you know, entertaining and not being positive. It's designed that way. You understand? It's designed that way. Like, this country is so messed up. We have to come together. We have to. Thank you, Dr. Joy James, and everyone that's a part of this conversation. I know I go on and on and on, so thank you for coming on. Okay.
Let me go first to the chat and then a couple things, and then I'll be brief, and then your roundtable discussion. So from one person, they're asking about, well, first, their thanks for your contributions, asking about the conversation of abolishment, or I'm wondering also if they might include abolition. The conversation about abolishment over radical reform when it comes to Black liberation, because we've been talking specifically about the Black experience, people of African descent, right? And of course, we know that the grant includes other parties, and we know that the boarding schools, the disappearance of Indigenous women and girls is also a reality and also an expression of genocide, according to the definition by the UN. But since Black Americans have used "We Charge Genocide," the 1951 document, I'm curious about how you see Black liberation, how you see abolition, and how you see radical reform. And the person who writes this also say, I'm mainly thinking about what Amanda said because of foster care activists that they know in the UK. So I guess this is international. And a friend of mine involved in foster care activism who do not want to be in their households due to violence, but really want radical foster care reform. So I guess they're asking, what would be your strategies, you know, to move away from a federal state legal system that does expropriation, that takes babies. That was a very chilling video that you showed, Amanda, very disturbing. So thanks for doing that. And then there's another query. It says, thank you for this great, important conversation. The messages are powerful. How do you as organizers, because all four of you organize, handle disagreements with others that you organize with? And how do you work to confront or cope or develop strategies with people who disagree with your analyses, or who might even co-opt part of your analyses? And so those are the two queries that were in the chat, among others. And then I was interested in what you think of political family. And I also know that your contributions are shaped by your own vulnerability to the state, your own vulnerability to violence, losing jobs, having received death threats, people trying to dismember your families, actually dismembering your families with police violence. How do you see the relationship between spiritual families and political families? And Samaria, you brought up electoral politics because you were actually there on the main stage, you know, with people on the main stage. So these are a number of queries. Again, you probably have your own, but I just wanted to put those on the table. And maybe, Samaria, maybe if Amanda or Dawn or Joyce want to start.
If you guys don't mind, I'd like to jump in there. I'm like just bouncing in my seat. First, I'd like to say that I don't believe it's a point that we don't stick together. I think it is a point that they make direct efforts to ensure our separation via systems. I'll give you an example. A young man that I was working with, or a mom that I was working with that lived in a housing project in New York City, had a baby by a young man that was in prison. He was incarcerated for reasons unrelated to anything that happened in the building where he and his child's mother lived at, which happened to be the same housing project where his mom lived at. When he was released from prison, he had to go live in a shelter because the housing project said he could not have a felony conviction for a drug sale and live in a housing project. His mom, who was approaching her 70s, and his child's mother, who had 2 other children, were both afraid of being evicted for having him allow to stay the night with them or visit them in that complex. Their unwillingness to let him live there or visit there was not because we don't stick together. It was because the system was designed to keep us apart. And I think there's a lot of that happening. And like with many things that the system does, it's invisible to the naked eye. And that's what creates the systemic, right? Because systemic things are not seen. And I would like to say there is no white supremacy. I wish we would stop saying that. I think there are only an extreme amount of white people with severe mental health issues that lead them to believe that they're supreme. And I say that because white people historically has been unable to do anything for themselves. We built this country with sweat and our bare hands. The teachers erase our history, our memory from this history. This is not the land of the free. It's not the home of the brave, as they say. There's nothing brave about the things they do. It's very cowardly. This is a place that's plagued with systemic racism, and it's the home of the slave, which is why we have incarceration, which is why we have the foster care system that prepares people to be incarcerated. And I'm going to go into my spiel that I go into every time I ever speak, which is the parallels between mass incarceration and foster care, where we created a system that we said was there to protect and care for children. But 87% of the children in the system across this nation are there for reasons related to poverty that was framed as neglect. But once they yank these children out of their home, they're strip searched like prisoners. They're separated from everyone and everything they know and love like prisoners. They change homes as regularly as prisoners change cells, if not more often. They use garbage bags and pillowcases to change locations, just like prisoners do. They eat what they are served, like prisoners do. They have set visit times on set visit days, like prisoners. They have oversight during the visit, like prisoners. If they get to go home, they're paroled, utilizing the same language as the prison industrial complex, and they have oversight during that parole period and can be re-separated for any minute infraction. The majority of children who spend time in foster care are more apt to be incarcerated and are mostly incarcerated as a next step. So it is not the pipeline that we call it. We must correct our language. It is a prerequisite. It is a training. It is a preparation. It is intentional. It is not by accident. And I ask you, why would you ask me, should we abolish something that's causing great harm and destruction to families purposefully and that don't care for the kids even when they do need help? To abolish only means to end. And why would you question and say, maybe we should radically reform something that we know is causing harm? So should I cut you 9 times instead of 10? Is reducing the pain what we're looking for, or are we looking to stop the bleeding altogether? Next.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's it, right? How do we radically reform this system? It's like trying to make the slave master or the slave catchers better people. And that's not like what the goal is. The goal is to ensure that this system is not a threat to us, right? And again, like Samaria was saying, that the United Nations, the address that Biden gave last night, I watched it and I was definitely in disgust, right? It was just a whole bunch of professional clappers that just kept getting up and down every time he spoke. But the one thing that really stuck out to me is he said that the United States is the only nation built off an idea, right? And so which is true. If you think about it, this idea that people are supreme and that another class of people are inferior is the idea that these people have continue to put into from generation to generation, and then they've been able to keep it going through violence, right? The police, right? Like if the only thing they did was get better cars, right? They got uniforms, but the original slave catchers they didn't have uniforms on, they just did the job, right? But now they're able to do the job and get a paycheck from it, right? And so every time you try to reform that, or you try to give them some type of training to help them see past what is deeply rooted into the very system that they take an oath to protect, like how do we expect anything to change if we keep trying to just change it? We got to change ourselves. We got to change our mindset that we want anything from this system, right? The system has to be completely abolished, and we need community control, right? We need community control of the community control just of our children, of the police, of every other system that is taking our people down. So yes, no, I do not believe in abolishment, and not believe in radical reform. It is all abolishment. And then the other question was in regards to like organizing, or how do we agree to disagree, right, in movement space. But I think that it's definitely more ways to skin a cat, right? You got to be able to approach this thing from different angles. And I think if we all agree to unity under certain principles, right? I understand that this system needs to be taken down. And just because we might not agree on the way to get to that, if we are all doing the work to get to that same goal, then the mission still gets accomplished, right? The mission still gets accomplished. And so I think that is, what we need in this movement space is an understanding and a respect for each other, that, our purpose, right? Our purpose is given to us. Like Samaria said, she said that, she came to this work because this was given to her, right? Like this is in her, right? And so when we wake up in the morning, I know, right? Just like J. Max, Samaria, we know what we have to do to take this system down, because it's our purpose, and that's just what we're gonna have to do.
So thank y'all, ladies. I'm sorry, I was being interrupted. So when I think about Black liberation, and the reason I keep saying it because Black liberation has to be first, trumps everything. Because if there's no Black liberation, can't nobody be liberated, right? So that's why I keep saying that. I definitely agree with you, Joyce, and with the mass incarceration system, the foster system, Amanda, everything is exactly right. But for what I was saying, when you're not raised like that, so let me give you an example. I kind of wish like my mother and father were Black Panthers and I was raised that way. That means, sometimes it's a strong bond, although it's designed to still break us apart and stuff like that. But you still, it's the strong bond with the teaching of, your mom and your dad. I just wish I was, raised that way. I wasn't, this came to my front door. Okay. So I have to kind of start from where I'm at, and when I say we don't stick together, that's kind of what I have been experiencing. And on top of everything else, of course, right? But that's just what I see in certain cities, especially when I'm trying to make change in my community, and I'm going to these council meetings and they all Black, and I got my foundation, and it was all Black women that turned me down for capital funding. And I'm just trying to get back to the community and build the building, so that's what I kind of mean. Those type of people, you know what I'm saying? And they may not be woke, they may never get woke, but it's okay, but we still got to keep it moving, right? So even when they turn me down, I just keep it moving, and I try not to deal with folks like that in my spirits, because I'm very spiritual. I get sick, you know what I'm saying? When I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do, and somebody just come and mess up my vibe or something like that. We're spiritual people, and I like to kind of excuse myself, like, if you're not gonna come in here liberal with an open mind and stuff like that, I mean, how am I going to be able to work with you? I can't stress myself out. I can't kill myself, you know, because you don't want to wake up and stuff like that. But it's a lot of people that do want to wake up. So we give them the teaching of how to love one another and things like that. And it, when it comes to the mass incarceration, it's just like, I'm still trying to understand it just a little bit. I mean, I do understand this design, and they took people out their homes and broke families up. But I can't understand how you said, don't say white supremacy, the powers to be, I'm gonna say powers to be, how do they can take our lives and take our precious men and women lives and just disregard them. Like, I'm still having a hard time understanding that part of the system, which I haven't got too deep in. I'm sure Amanda could probably educate me a little bit more, maybe you, Joyce, because it's a lot of positive, good brothers and sisters that's in there in prison that don't need to be there. You know, they don't need to be there. So and then it's just messed up. The country it's just messed up. I mean, it's just totally messed up.
Well, let me go back to questions that have come up then. And also there was another one that corrected me on calling out the United Nations, because they pointed to what has happened to Haiti, right? In terms of the betrayals against that country, you know, against its autonomy, or even the use of UN peacekeepers who go to Haiti and end up raping Haitian women and girls and leaving babies behind, and nobody's accountable. So I'm wondering how you see your causes, your campaigns, which, you know, we share, you know, understand within the realm or the framework of the US. How do you see this as international? Like, Amanda, I know there'll be a march, you know, around Black families or Black mothers, but when you're organizing, marching, or even Dawn working in the ICE camps, I mean, that is an international arena, right? Because you're having people come from other countries. And we have a question coming from somebody from UK. So how do you see your organizing? I'll try to like focus and make this clear. How do you see your organizing within the US linked to or incubating or being, you know, picked up outside of the US? Does that make sense, that question?
What I think is Black Americans or Black people have a lot of problems, not just in America, but outside of America. But I think that has come from the influence of Americans. And I think if we can begin to keep Americans out of other countries and we can contain them to the US, then we can finally organize the way that we need to organize and stop it. Part of the problem is their hate has spread really wide. And it's a hate for Black people. So no matter what country they go into, they're giving us needles, they're giving us blankets with diseases on it. They're, you know, just doing the most through medical experiments, through claiming to help children when they're not. Everything they do is a fake. And so Haiti's uprising to keep America out is they're calling America out now for coming over, claiming to be of help when they are doing nothing but causing confusion, giving guns to other countries, doing all of the things here and just trying to spread that message out. And it's impacting us when we leave the US because people are influenced. America has been a great influence, but their hate is not going to continue to reign because the movement for change is growing. And I am as sickened by you, Ms. Rice, when we talk about our politicians, because our politicians are not our politicians. They are people we've elected to represent the voice of the community, but they don't even take time to hear from the community. They represent only their own interests. And until we can begin to get a handle on that, hold them accountable. Don't be afraid to call them out. Don't take pictures with them. Do not. They are not celebrities. They are here to serve. We have boasted their ego to the point where they think that they are someone special. You have a job to do, and you must do your job. And it is up to us advocates, us organizers, to hold them responsible. The pressure is not on the people in the community. The pressure is on these people who've been elected to do a job, to have them do the job so the resources can come to the community so we can better organize the community and provide them with the things they need.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when it comes to organizing and us being where we need to be, I think it's going to be a struggle, because even when I was at the State of the Union address and I was talking to the Black Caucus and some of the council people, councilmen and councilwomen, it really just felt real fake. And I'm to the point where I don't want to, like, yeah, we vote them out, but it's a certain way that you do things. It's almost like we gotta demand and do it in a way where we still have dignity, and we need the power to do that stand behind us and support us. And what that looks like, right? What does that look like? It may look like a rainbow of all colors when it comes to that, because all of us is being oppressed in this country, especially Black folks is being oppressed, right? So I just think that, you know, when I seen up there, it just gave me very little hope. I was very angry. I was very angry because these are the people that was elected in, and they don't value our lives. They don't even value our lives. They know the powers to be don't value our lives, but when their own people don't value their lives, and we had an example, Tyree Nichols, right? They don't even value our lives. So how do we continue to have those conversations with them people? Sometimes I think it's useless, because what I'm not going to go back and forth with somebody that has not lost nothing in this. Again, as you said, they are celebrities. They are pretenders. You know, Al Sharpton been around for years, and he's still having steak dinners up in the White House. What is you doing? What is you doing for us? You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to play these games with these folks. So I think for the most part is that, you know, I'm to the point where I'm like, this is what it's going to be. Split it down the line. We stand over here, y'all stay over here. Don't come over here with all of that. That's just where
Samaria, thank you for
yes.
that. Thank you for that, because it's bringing me back to a question, and people, there's a lot of questions in this chat that I'm trying to get through. So there's several people, they're bringing it back to the international arena, to the UN.
I'm sorry.
What is?
I'm going to cut you off. You know, I went to the United Nations, right? And
That's what I'm saying. I know a number of the of impacted families petitioned the international court.
Yeah.
So, okay, and then also let me just add something, okay, and then I'll stop. All right. So we charged genocide. That document from 1951, the Civil Rights Congress, they walked it over to the UN, went around the globe, embarrassed the US, you know, lynchings of Black people, exploitation, beatings, et cetera. Like what you're describing in the 21st century, people were trying to stop in the 20th century, appealing to the international ethical, you know, order, which, you know, how much the UN works for us is another question, but it's still used as a template. And so also there was We Charge Genocide a year or two ago, and it was held in the Audubon Ballroom where Malcolm was assassinated, and you raised Malcolm, right, as a kind of spiritual political mentor and template. So the questions that I'm seeing now in the chat is, if you understand that the US government, the conventional two-party system, like you're not going to play to the Republicans, but the Democrats are not, based on what you said about the State of the Union, and Amanda, you watched it too, this is performative politics. Absolutely. Then what strategies are possible in terms of international not just petitions, but international solidarity, international coalitions. I mean, I was reading in the news, like from, I guess it's BAP, Black Alliance for Peace, the theft of Cameroon babies. Like there's a market, the market of human trafficking never stopped, right? And the most vulnerable people are the ones most likely to have their children taken from them and put into some kind of, predatory political economy. So again, people are asking, as you talk about organizing the US, even if they're just concept ideas, spontaneous, what are the possibilities of creating alliances with the international progressive movements?
Let me just say something. Me going to the United Nations, I really thought that they were going to come in and help us over here in the United States. They're not going to help us, okay? It's just documented what's going on over here. They're not going to help us. For anyone that's listening and have seen and that watch movies, watch Hotel Rwanda. That would kind of give you a little bit of, just a little bit of how important Americans is, number one, but how important just to watch how they committed the genocide on their own people and really thought that they was going to take over, and they did, right? Clinton didn't even send no help over there, right? So again, how can we be in a, not even alliance, how can we build any type of relationships with any international people at this point? I don't know. Can it be done? I really don't know, but I do know that Americans are known to be bullies, and Americans, a lot of people are disgusted with Americans, and it kind of makes me a little skeptical a little bit when I go out the country to talk to different people. Like my son has a memorial in Palestine, although they may accept me, but then again, some people may not. So again, it's a tricky conversation, and it's kind of tricky because you don't know who could be our allies or who not, like, right? I don't know, but I do know that Biden has sent a lot of money overseas when he should have been keeping that money here in the United States. So I don't know how we gonna be able to build anything with any other country when they laughing at us, number one, they don't respect us, number two, and they take us for jokes, number three. Like, and we dying just like they're dying over there, but in different type of ways. So I don't know.
Okay, thanks for that response. Can we poll the roundtable then? And maybe it's not the country itself, maybe it's oppressed communities within the country, but thanks, Samaria. Can we hear from other people, your thoughts about international alliances? And also, I'm sorry, a student asked also about civil rights movement. Do you imagine that the work you're doing could restart another civil rights movement? Thanks.
I say yes on the civil rights movement, but I believe that it will look a lot different than what it looked like in the past, because I think there's a greater understanding about what it is we need. I think Martin Luther King, with all of his good intentions and all the respect and love that I have for him, pushed for us to be integrated into white communities. And I think that was one of the worst things that happened for us. We need to be separate and apart. We need to educate our own children, care for our own children, and run and control our own communities. We don't need to be integrated with them. I went to Switzerland twice in 2022 to visit the United Nations to discuss the plight of Black Americans or Black people in this country. I went once for the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination here in America. And that group actually did release some recommendations to the United States of America regarding foster care and prison, which is what I went and spoke about. They released some other recommendations too, based on things that other groups spoke about, poisoning the community, through air quality and other things. Like in Harlem, they just put a truck stop for 18-wheeler trucks in a very condensed Black neighborhood. So this, of course, is going to up respiratory problems and other health issues. So we did talk about how America strategically does things, and they use a formula for the things that they do. I was blessed enough to have a conversation with Angela Davis, and I did ask her, did she think going to the UN, staying in communication with the UN was something that could save us? I didn't believe it was when I asked her, but her being who she is, I wanted to get that question in. She said it will not save us, but it is a part of something that needs to occur. So I'm going to continue to do my work with the UN regarding the things that's happening in to Black Americans and Black people in general in America. But I'm also going to continue to do my work here on the ground.
I definitely think that we have an opportunity to partner, right, with colonized people all across this world. We weren't just brought to the Americas, right? We were spread out all over. And so, yes, definitely there is unity, but I think for us, we have to first divorce America before we could begin to like have a blueprint for other, like across the world. Like even the fact that we still call ourselves African Americans, right? Like, again, we hyphenate that name as if we are married to this country, as if they have ownership of us, right? Like, I know I'm an African, right? But that is something that we have to, in our mindset, when we're thinking about abolishing this system, we can't keep that name, right? And so and then again, in regards to the civil rights movement, we have to also remember that the reason why the civil rights movement did not, take us where we needed to go is because they killed our leaders, right? COINTELPRO, like they came in and they just completely wiped out anybody that was speaking about Black liberation. And so when we're thinking about how we are going to forward the revolution and finish this out, we have to understand that that is what is going to happen when we begin to fight for power. The chairman, Omali Yeshitela of the African People's Socialist Party, the FBI raided his home along with 7 other locations in July of 2022 because of the programs of the African People's Socialist Party, because they are building basketball courts in St. Louis, because they are building community centers, because we are fighting for true Black liberation and not asking America or our oppressor for those resources. And so I very much know, right? I know that this freedom we're going to get it in our lifetime. But I think it starts with having some really hard conversations about what we are willing to do, what the stance that we are willing to take against America, even being in America, right? We are currently colonized in this territory. And so what are we willing to do to be able to fight to get ourselves out of it, to get the control in our own territory?
I agree, Amanda. So.
I as well believe that alliances can be made internationally. I worked inside of an ICE immigration detention camp. So I'm an American alliance for them. One voice for international waters. When the case first broke with me, things traveled all the way to Australia and Quebec and Africa and different places, to where people were wondering where one individual, single mom of 5, a nurse, only job that I had, that stood up and risked everything for what was right. I came from a little small background where my grandma taught me to treat people how you want to be treated. That grew up in me systemically. So me in the system that does not work systemically for us, but working against the systemic racism in the system. For Samaria was talking about earlier, it's all colors. I encounter all nationalities, all colors inside of this facility. But what we gotta first do is you gotta build a trust, because that's just like you looking at here. If I'm mistreated and I go tell the next person this is how I was treated at XYZ, then everybody's gonna think that you were treated at this facility, and everybody that works inside that facility or that place or inside of that entity is a bad person. So if I take that back across international waters and I was treated this way in America, then everybody coming this way is gonna think that this is the way that every American person treats every person. Civil rights and civil liberties. I'm learning from you ladies tonight a lot because I don't divulge a lot in that. I've been nursing for 14 years, but civil rights, do I think it can happen coming from the area that I'm in? Yes, I agree with Joyce, it's gonna look different. I agree with Amanda, it's gonna look different. I'm a different generation seeing things in a different light. And I'm also being led to learn different to where the person that was before me, medically, not stepping on anybody's toes, but the medical person before me set a tone for me. So every person now is going to think that I'm coming in because I was afraid to lose my job, or I was afraid to speak out, or because I needed this job to work with my counterparts that were afraid to speak out, that did need their job, and they were coercively along with this individual because they were in fear, then they're going to look at me the same way. So there are barriers that have to be broken. It's going to take some time. It's got to be chiseled away at, but it can be done and trust can be rebuilt.
Thank you. I want to add there's a standing invitation to all of you from DQI about joining. There's a movement to build a People's Senate. And I think that was discussed before about these legislative organizing. And so this would be with We Still Charge Genocide in the Spirit of Mandela Coalition. So you can contact me for the contact information, after we finish this chat, but I appreciate the complexity that you don't see it. It's going to be an easy bridge into any of these avenues, right? So I want to go back though to a specific issue that sometimes when we say we're not united, we have different concepts, ideas about this. And it's the role of electoral politics, right? And so how do you see leverage maybe in electoral politics and the changes in law? I understand from Amanda, because you're speaking as an African socialist, right? So you're not trying to, I'm not trying to speak for you, but I don't think you're trying to integrate into capitalism, particularly this form of capitalism that's birthed in genocide and enslavement. It's part of its origin story, right? But do you see the political family as reaching any forms of agreement around electoral politics? And maybe this People's Senate, that they're talking about in the Spirit of Mandela, another organization that's mobilizing, that, it brought 5 charges of genocide. It included environmental pollution, it included health inequities, it included incarceration, mass incarceration, but also political incarceration. So Amanda raised, I think, COINTELPRO. One of the byproducts of COINTELPRO is political prisoners, right? Jalil al-Amin, Kamal Siddiqui, Mumia Abdul-Jamal, and the disparities, which Amanda, because you're a medical, trained medical provider, of how you're treated in prisons because of your politics. And so when they target you as a progressive person speaking for the people, your healthcare becomes more limited or more corrupted or denied. So I'm wondering if you would want to address some of those issues that are coming up in the chat.
As a nurse, there's control, and I hear these ladies talk about the different controls that are, you're either policed or you're prisoned or your kids are taken from you. There's some form of reprimand for utilizing your voice and utilizing the concerns that you have inside of the prison. Like I said, whenever they did not comply, their water was shut off. When they did not comply, they were denied food. When they did not comply, they were denied phone calls. When they did not comply, they were denied rights to visitation. It's a form of control inside of a place that you're already being policed and controlled in. And speaking out and speaking to that control cost me my job. Speaking to that control cost me not being employed for 2 years cost me as a single mom taking care of 5 kids, one child in college, that now I'm having to rebuild and restructure a whole life because there's a way that is warranted. And when people in power, because we were talking about, and I'm listening about white supremacy, but when people of power want power, they get it by any means necessary, even if that means that they're going to control the individuals that they have in. So it's just another silent term that I agree to for enslavement, entrapment. I'm going to train you how to conduct yourself. And if you don't conduct yourself the way that or respond the way that I want, you won't get your tooth seen about today. It'll ache. You won't go to the ear doctor. You know, you're going to be deaf in that ear at some point. You won't go see the cardiologist. Your heart will continue to skip a beat until the point to where we find now those that are incarcerated are dying at the hand of security because they're not being given proper care. So it's like my employees that I work with were job scared. You know, I'm having everybody telling me, oh, we see this, we know this is going on, but we can't do this. So they're job scared from the top to where my supervisor, same color, same ethnicity, female, was watching me going back, reporting to higher authority, different color, different gender. So I was being policed, not knowing I was being policed. So if I had a conversation, you were to be my friend and get next to me, because that's how society works. You're to get next to me to find out what I know so I can take it to the man, as people say, so we can still keep that order of control still functioning and flowing.
I'd just like to readdress the reform issue by giving an example, because I think people really get confused as to why we want to end a system of harm versus reform it. Reform is doing the same thing, utilizing a different avenue. And an example, in New York, I have a piece of legislation called informed consent. It's advising people in a healthcare setting if they will be drug tested and getting their permission to be drug tested during the birthing process. So that's prenatal appointments and postpartum. Because when we test mothers and children at hospitals, we don't test them to give them a treatment plan if we believe that they are abusing a substance. We test them simply to refer them to the child welfare industrial complex. That's not what doctors are supposed to do. So you're not testing for anything related to a medical reason, then you should be asking this person for their consent to be tested. That's the idea of the bill. Health and Human Services, Health and Human Holiday Corporation, whatever the hell it is, HHC, came out and said they were no longer going to test parents during the birthing process, prenatal or postpartum. People said yay, and people began to call me and congratulate me on that achievement. Well, it's not an achievement because they never committed to not testing the baby. That's reform. They were creating reform. They were doing something different, but still getting the same outcome of separating families during the birthing process. Because when they test the baby, more than likely, even if it's not in the baby's bloodstream, it will be in the umbilical cord. So therefore, we're not here for reform. We don't want to do the same thing under a different name. We're not trying to change the face of, we're trying to change the reality. And I think that's really important for people to understand, because the other thing I just don't understand is, aren't they helping some families? The minuscule amount of families that's being helped is not worth having a system in place, because more children would be helped if family members and other loved ones could step in and support. Right now, if I wanted to take Amanda's child, if she has one, or Dawn's or Joy's, it wouldn't be that simple. Child welfare officials would be involved, and they would want to scrutinize the home that this child is going to, and all of this other stuff, just causing confusion and convoluting the process. Joy, Dawn, Amanda, Sarah, Maxine, whatever your name is as a woman, should have autonomy over trusting and believing who gets to care for your child. And it should have nothing to do with the government. And again, it's the idea that they have utilized that word protection to cause great harm, because they don't protect people in my community. They protect white people's property that's in my community. And they don't protect us when we go places outside of our community and get attacked. They protect the people of that community to ensure that we're deterred from coming to that community, because they want to keep us rounded up like a bunch of cattle in a small condensed area that's much easier to control.
And I also say, just as being like when I was inside the system and there was, something that happened that, forced some type of reform effort, or the laws to change or policy to change. Realistically, though, that really didn't make it down to the front lines or when people were actually doing, right? Because the culture of an agency is what runs the agency. And so it's the people at the agency and what they believe is appropriate, what they believe is not appropriate. And so even at the state level, people might believe that they are, like it's changing, but then what do actual families experience on the front lines? And, also thinking about the money, like understanding that children, even inmates, are a mode of production for the system, right? And so when we think about like these children, for me, for 10 years, I did what's called day sheets. And so every child that comes into the system has a number, a 200 number in North Carolina. And so every minute, 480 minutes of the day is coded for a child, right? And so that's how my salary got paid. That's how the money came down for the federal government. And so the more children that you have, the easier it is to pay the salaries of the people. And so it's not just about salaries. It's also about the paper, that is the ink that you print on, the cars that go out into the community to take children or go do home visits. All of these things are attached to the system, and then they employ corporate loyalty in the people. And so even when you think about politics, like politicians are loyal to America because they believe that the system is what needs to continue. And so again, I don't believe in politics that are attached anything to America. Like, again, I don't believe anything that's attached to America. Now, if it comes to like us as a people coming together, self-governing ourselves, coming up with things, that's something completely different. But again, I think first we have to like really abolish anything that looks like we don't want to start policing each other. We don't want to start governing each other. Like if we go back to before we were enslaved, we were prosperous. We were doing what we needed to do. And so a lot of times, especially in our schools, they like teach you that this is where our history started. But if we just abolish these people and the idea that we need this government agency or system to be able to live, we could also like unlock our ancestral roots, right? And our ancestors to be able to say that this is what we need to be able to do.
As we were moving through our last half hour, I'm wondering, because there are different definitions of reparations, I'm wondering if each one of you could describe what that would mean to you as the way you describe what family would mean, what freedom is, and you say we don't have it. Yeah, check that box, I agree. What security might look like. But I'm still deeply disturbed by that clip, Amanda. Like, so what would it mean to give that mother reparations for 590 days? I mean, you can't even It
It
doesn't.
start with 590 million.
Okay, okay,
You
that's
can
a
start there, right?
Andre, thank you for being tangible and precise. Like, how about this? We'll start with that one, then we'll have to deal with the attorneys and negotiate. But to repair ourselves, our communities, like our losses. And then the way I see all four of you, I mean, I appreciate your courage. I also see you in different ways as healers or sharing comfort with other people who were traumatized, right, by this systemic violence, right? But what would repair and reparations look like, either as a political, spiritual, familial, or all of the above? And maybe we could, you know, sort of channel to close, or however you want to channel to close, but this repair and reparations is fixed in my mind.
It would be, I'll jump in first, be real brief.
Can you hear me?
Repair
Hello?
it would be different.
I can't hear.
It would be very, very different for me, because sterilization, how do you repair taking away my uterus? How do you repair taking away my ovaries? How do you repair taking away my fallopian tubes? How do you repair taking away my reproductive organs? Basically telling me that you've thrown my legacy in the trash without my consent. So reprimand for me would be really tricky, because you've taken something from me that I can never get back. I can never get back the ability to reproduce. I can never get back the harm that you did to my body. I can never get back the right to my body. I could never get back. There's going to be years of healing that these women are going to have to go through, because they got to live with now being dismembered or mangled beyond what they could control, because they made one decision to go in and take a loaf of light bread to feed their kids, or they went in and because my child is diabetic and I've been store credit with the owner, but because now the owner is upset or has a bad day, I can't credit insulin. So I'm walking in doing my normal routine. And now I'm being told that I cannot bear forth or put forth, I can't leave a legacy. I can't leave heirs here. So a lot of reform for me, you can't give me a new body. You can't give me a new mind. I've got to go through extensive years now of healing to repair the body. Now I got to repair the mind. I've got to repair the spirit. With a broken spirit, it's hard for the body to function. And I'm like Samaria, very spiritual, a contrite spirit. What do I do now? Where do I go now broken? So for me, no money is going to pay for that. Time, that's something that I have to live with. So, I mean, Amanda, she was like 590 million. I mean, you're going to have to grovel, a lot of groveling, a lot of begging, all the money in the world can't make me birth. And that was a desire for a 23-year-old female, that she desired to birth, that when she got home, her life was going to be in shambles because there was a choice made for her. So I don't think that there would be reform in this case. For me, there's no replacing, there's no healing, there's no making it better. It's like a done deal. It's hard to say, but it's kind of like you decided that I was not going to leave a legacy, and it goes back. So you just decided that my genocide was what it is, that my legacy was going to be wiped out because of the color of my skin.
Thank you, Don. Let me say this. The question was, what was the question again? What does liberation look like, or freedom?
Repair and reparations.
Reparations, yeah. I get it mixed up. So well, I think that we have to continue to wake up the masses, because if we don't, it's going to be a lot of casualties, right? I also believe that we need to demand what we want, and as simple as that. Like, I'm not in the business of negotiating, but this is the thing. I hear Joyce when she said we have to strategize. Yes, we have to strategize, but you know, with strategizing, it has to be like-minded people alike to go in there to demand, like, look, y'all giving us half of this, Don't come over here with that. We gonna have our own people's government. We got our own security over here. We don't need no help from y'all. We got our own electricians, our own plumbers. We got our own everything. We built the country. We could build another one. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not like, they have destroyed my life, destroyed my children's life, many other family lives across the nation. Just the law enforcement, the government itself, they don't solve crimes. They got everybody in jail. Like, I'm not in the business of trying to be their friends. Like, if we could get a team, army behind us that's for us, about us, you know what I'm saying? We will be all right. And again, and that's just how I feel. Like, I have seen beyond what people may think that could look like if we join, like, if we join as one. But again, like I said, Black liberation gonna always be first, because if Black people can't be liberated, nobody's gonna be liberated. And just like in the Malcolm X movie, the white allies, they will just be our allies because they cannot help us. They cannot help us. They will never be able to understand what it is to be us. So that's kind of where I'm at. My mind is kind of on a militant side sometimes, but also I know I have to kind of wear the white hat because I also service the youth, and I try to service our brothers and sisters, the ones that want to be served. You understand what I'm saying? It's so much of a difference to want it and to be in it. You got to want this. You have to want this. And by my tragedy and what I've been through, I want this and I'll die for this. I work for the people, and that's just it. I work for the people, and the people, the ones that want to come on. We gonna love on you. We gonna teach you and stuff like that. We gotta comb through the fine tooth hair comb and get the ones that don't mean us no good, that will sabotage us and things like that. Like, I'm thinking for the future because I have seen it, been through it, and just witnessed everything with my own eyes. That's kind of where I'm at with it. And like I said, they need to give us the land, give us the money. Like, they owe us. It ain't like they don't owe us, y'all. Okay, they owe us. Okay, because there's no money in the world that they could give me for the death of my son. You understand? Although I took a settlement, but I wanted to go on with my life. I did not want to continue to be bothered with these people. I still have 3 other children I'm raising. You know what I'm saying? And it was not easy. So yeah, and if I would have knew any better, I probably wouldn't have took the settlement because I did not know. This don't come with no book. You know what I'm saying? I had to fire 3 attorneys to even get to the attorney that I had, because all my attorneys was trying to blackball me. You understand me? They trying to blackball me. They did not want me to speak. They said an angry woman will not get nothing. I'm like, nothing. I want justice. I don't want no money. I need justice for my son, a 12-year-old child. Where's the justice? I shouldn't have to wait no 80 years like no Emmett Till. And that lady damn near dead, and they want to go arrest her. Y'all may as well let her down off. I don't want to wait no 80 years for no justice for my son. So I'm in the business of taking what I want by any means by necessary. It is what it is. They should not be able to go home and sleep peaceful at night. No government, no law enforcement in this country. You understand? And again, if we start doing what they do to us, I bet you some things will change. But again, that's my radical thinking. And again, sometimes I'm not a good strategizer. You know what I'm saying? I act on emotions a lot of the times, and I'm a revolutionary, right? I don't have time to be politically correct. I don't have to be. You know what I'm saying? They murdered my son, and he's a baby. And not only murder my son, the genocide that has been committed in this country. So they can't say nothing to me. I will tell them what to do at the end of the day. They will never tell me what to do. I will only comply when necessary, because I want my life. You understand? So I do know how to comply when necessary. But I don't let them tell me nothing. They cannot tell me nothing. I will always tell them what to do. And I will always think of myself as a Black queen in this country and my Black kings in this country. It is what it is. And that's what I will be teaching at the Samaria Rice Foundation Afro Central Culture Center. Yes, we will be teaching the African learning over there, because what we will not do, what I will not do, I will not tell a child a lie, because they lied to me in this country. And that's why I plant the seed while it's young. You have to plant it while it's young. You have to. You have to invest in your children, and you will see the fruitfulness of them if you do it the correct way. I had four high school graduates. Okay, they gave Tamira honorary diploma. Okay, 3 high school graduates, 2 kids still in school when Tamira was murdered. It was not easy. So I have a total of 4 high school graduates, and I come out the ghetto. It was very important that I made sure my kids had a high school diploma, because I wanted them to go to the next level. But as you see in this country, you don't even need certain credentials. Okay, it's all a game, and I had to learn that, and I had to learn it like everything is all a game. They should be having free healthcare and free learning in this country. I don't know what this country is doing. I just don't know. So I just wanted to leave with that, ladies. And I'm gonna try to stay on a little bit longer. Joy, I'm so sorry, but I do have to run in like
No,
next
that's
5 minutes.
okay. No, but
Okay.
thank you. So I
Thank
think,
y'all.
thank you. Joyce and Amanda, I think, or was it Joyce and, I'm sorry, repair and reparations, Joyce
Yeah,
and Amanda.
listen, a lot of what Ms. Rice just stated, I resonates with me. For me, the repair is the healing, right? And you cannot heal when the same thing is happening. If I have a cut and it's starting to heal and you cut it open again, it never heals. And that's what we experience as Black people. We talk about PTSD. There's nothing post about the stress disorder that we deal with in this country. And so we need space to heal. Space means, again, back to the same thing, getting rid of systems that confine us, that judge us, that create false narratives, that treat us inappropriately, that bully us, that threaten us, that take our lives away, that take our loved ones away, that traumatize, that do all of the things that only a sick person would do. So again, with that white supremacy, there's nothing supreme about being evil. That's a mental illness. And the only reason we have some mental health problems is because they were never treated for theirs. We talk about generational harm for us. Imagine a little kid that grew up eating watermelon at a picnic as they hung, and I'm going to say it, niggers from trees, right? There's a lot to deal with and unpack there in the white bloodline as to how that has impacted them generations and why they continue to still feel so inferior to us. I was at a college one day giving a lecture doing the regular spiel that I do about the parallels and other systemic problems. And one of the brave little white kids said to me, Miss McMillan, please don't blame white people for your failures, for Black people's failures. You're always blaming white people. It's Black people who don't want to pick up a book and read. It's Black people who don't want to go to college so they can get a job. It's Black people who have a bunch of baby daddies. It's Black people, Black fathers that leave their children at home with the mamas and don't care for them or pay child support. And I let him talk. And when he finished, the entire class was looking at me, all white kids and maybe 2 Black kids, I think it was. And I was looking at the expressions on all their faces, and they were looking at me like, what is she going to say? He didn't throw her off her game. And I'm like, it's not a game. So I simply asked them, what is a historical house, right? What is this? What does it take for a house to be listed as historical? And they were looking at me like, yeah, he definitely threw her off her game. She's talking about landmarks and historical houses. How do we go from that to this? So entertain me. I had one of the students tell me that it was a house that was built over 100 years ago that had this landmark status where you couldn't change anything in it. So then I had to remind them, It wasn't because of our inability that this house has landmark status. It was because we've been smarter than you from the beginning. We didn't need to read books. You tried to stop us from being successful by telling us we couldn't learn to read, but it didn't take us reading books to build the house that now has landmark status, the house that is still standing. But remember the houses that you built after going to school and getting your Ivy League education, because I was at an Ivy League school, those are the ones that are falling down. Those are the ones that's made of materials that can't hold up to the weather, that you can hear what's happening in your neighborhood homes. It's not the ones that we built with our bare hands, right? So never think that you're smarter. Never think that these situations that we find ourselves in because of your evil doings are because of our inability. We've been smarter than you from day one, because even without reading, even without getting a high school diploma, even without going to college, you only put college in the play to try to stop us and slow us down. Listen, you cannot compare yourself to us. We are greatness. We are kings and queens. When will we be able to step into our own and live who we actually are and who we were born to be is going to depend on our healing, right? How we achieve that individually and collectively until we can become completely separate and apart from systems. And the reparations is there's not enough money to pay us, but there is the space for us to live in peace without having to interact with them. That would be enough reparations for me. If I was told I'd never see another white person again, I feel like I've received reparations.
Amen to that. Oh, that was so good. Thank you, Miss Joyce. I loved it. Oh my God. Yes.
Amanda, the last word is yours.
Okay, yeah, I would just say again, repair is just like everybody has said, healing. And that could look like so many different things for different people. Yoga, journaling, right? Getting our chakras in line. You're just making sure that we are good with ourselves so that we can get out of like just kind of this system and into our minds and our bodies and our souls. And then when we think about reparations, yes, it looks like money. It could look like, you know, every white person in this country donating, investing in movements, right, that are freeing us, right? We don't wait for somebody to tell you to invest in community, just do it, right? If you have an understanding, it might not have been you, right? And it might not have been your granddaddy, but if you go back in your lineage, somebody owned a slave and you need to pay for it, right? And so like just that understanding that it is time to pay reparations, and reparations doesn't just look like money, just like Samaria said, it is also land and it is also our people, right? When we think about our political prisoners that are currently locked down, if we freed our political prisoners, we would have the army that we needed to take this thing forward, right? But the United States government knows that if they keep our people locked up, then we can't push this thing forward. But so again, reparations looks like money, it looks like land, and it also looks like freeing our political prisoners so that we can all unite on the front lines of this to push forward to freedom.
Well, I want to share with you the queries, the statements in the chat. I mean, people are sending love. People are amazed because they have rarely heard these kinds of conversations take place. And so I think of three words. I think of courage, candor, and care. And I appreciate you for being teachers because I've learned here tonight. But most of all, I appreciate you. And even as Dawn says, that some things cannot be repaired, particularly in a context in which we are not free. But I appreciate your commitments and just pushing us forward and pushing us to think critically and to work together collectively. So I wish you all well, and I hope we meet again at some point.
Uhuru, freedom.
Peace.
Take care.
Bye.